Hi all, welcome to this event. Thank you all for coming. I hope for those of you who have been joining to the events throughout the last week that you've been enjoying them. Now, first thing is first, it would be fantastic if you could give me a quick thumbs up if you can hear me okay, if you can see me okay. Just to make sure that everything's working. So if you could quickly give me a thumbs up in the chat on the right of the video, that would be really, really great. And we'll get started with today's event. So first of all, I just want to let everyone know who doesn't know, the International Short Film Week is an event that's been going on for the last week. Today is nearly the final day of the event. And the event really puts together multiple short film festivals. So you've been able to watch short films from 3 different film festivals for the last week. If you haven't done that already, you can do so right now or after this event on the CineCircle website. So you can just go and hover over the events above this video, and over there you can watch the films if you'd like. So today will be the award ceremony as well. But quick thing, so for the chat on the right of the video, you have to click and create an account, but creating an account literally means putting in your name. That's all you need to put in. No email address, no nothing to start chatting. And also below this video, you can see some more information about our future events. On to you, Magdalena.
Yeah, so today we have some interesting talks coming up. Zibi is going to speak with Peter Story from Greenlit first, and their talk is about business essentials for indie filmmakers. So you can expect a lot of interesting topics and advice there. And then I will be talking to Fiaba Di Martino, who some of you might remember from 2 years ago, I think, when we had her on as a guest speaker. And we will be talking about how you can succeed with short films.
Okay, fantastic. So I am going to now introduce Peter, and we'll get started with the first talk. And once again, you can use the chat next to the video to ask any questions throughout the talk. That is definitely more than encouraged, so feel free to do so. Okay. So Peter, I am now going to add you to this stream. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Zibi. I'm great. I'm absolutely great. Hi, CineCirclers who've joined us for this excellent International Short Film Week, which is always a delight. Always some great stuff comes through this one.
Fantastic. So why don't you start off by introducing yourselves? Let us know who you are and what you currently do.
Sure. So I'm Pete Story, and I'm the founder and CEO of Greenlit.com. We're the crowdfunding platform for creative work. We work predominantly with filmmakers. We've done an awful lot of films, features, shorts, documentaries. We also work with theatre projects, with music, and with games. So anything that's creative that you're trying to raise your money for, when you're thinking about crowdfunding, come and have a chat to us.
Okay, fantastic. And so during your sort of career, you've always been quite involved in the business side of things. So as much as filmmakers tend to always think about the creatives and how to make the best films, that doesn't always leave a lot of room to think about the business side of things, you know, how to fund, market, how to distribute. And I think that's really what we want to touch upon in this talk. We want to really, you know, dive a little deeper into, especially for short filmmakers and indie filmmakers, what are some of the, you know, key business kind of things that they really need to think about to not only be successful on the creative side, but also to be able to turn, you know, their passion into a career.
I mean, completely. There's so much, you know, obviously this is, you know, people make lifelong careers out of being producers, and the army of lawyers and accountants that you think you might need to have behind you for film of any scale. But with Greenlit, one of the things that we've seen very often, like you mentioned, is that a lot of producers, a lot of filmmakers come from that creative background and haven't necessarily thought about some of the components of business. So I'm just going to talk very briefly tonight because of the time constraints, but I've got a couple of things that are probably of value to short filmmakers, and things that you should be aware of, and things that you should have a little think about. And hopefully that's going to be some useful knowledge for everyone watching.
Definitely. So let's start off with, the first one. What are some of the key business parts? What's the first thing that filmmakers should really have a think about when making their films?
Okay. I mean, I'd like to start with just encouraging everybody to keep a track of their expenses. So you'll have made up a budget, but it can get very hectic on the film set, and cash is going left, right, and center, and you're kind of collecting stuff. And just a little bit of consistency and a little bit of thought about collecting your receipts and marking off your expenses and checking off what you've got. Now, that might sound very superficial, very, very simple thing to do, but I'm going to start to explain why that's going to be useful if you're actually starting to think of taking your short film commercially, and in particular, if you're thinking about the UK tax credits.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about the UK tax credits, because this is something that I think a lot of short filmmakers don't know about, and don't
absolutely
know.
Right. Yeah. So for the last few years, I think for the last 10 years or so, we've had what's actually quite a generous system of tax credits for filmmakers. In particular, you can also get them if you're making what's called high-end TV. I'm guessing most people here don't. I think it has to have a budget of £1 million an hour for TV, but you also get it for video games. You can get the tax credit for theatre productions. You can get the tax credit for gallery shows, in fact. But it effectively works out that you can reclaim 19% of your budget from the UK government. And, that's a very, very great giveaway. It was introduced predominantly to encourage international productions and to support the film industry and to support the kind of prestige productions. But what a lot of short filmmakers don't realize is that the threshold at which you can start to claim it, at which it becomes useful to claim it, can be anything above £20,000. So that's kind of the high end of most short films budgets, but it is something that you might want to be aware of if you want to top up your budget and have an extra few pounds to spend on your production. Now, it can be regarded as quite a complicated thing, and you will need the involvement of an accountant. There are some great accountants out there. We can recommend some. We can put that in the chat. But the first step is, if you're creating a low budget film, you need to make your accountant's job as easy as possible. And that's why I started with the rather simple and the rather facile aspect of starting to keep your receipts and working out where your money's going to go and where your money's been spent.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So essentially, anyone who's making even a short film over 20K is able to claim back nearly 20%. So in this case, it would be 4K of that budget, which essentially means that if you've got 20K, you can make a film for 25 basically.
Absolutely correct.
Which is really interesting. And it's something that a lot of filmmakers don't know about. Are there any other restrictions, except for the fact that the budget needs to be over 20K? Is there any other kind of restrictions on what films qualify?
There are. So in terms of what films qualify, the first stage in your application is you will have to go to the British Film Institute, and they will have to certify it as being sufficiently British. Which means that there's a checklist. You can go and find that on the BFI website. And there is a checklist which takes into consideration the nationality, or in fact, the residency, to be correct, of the key talent, the filmmaker, the director, the actor, the producers. It looks at their background and their residency. It looks at the subject matter, and it also generally applies, this rebate only applies to money that you're spending within the UK. There are exceptions for co-productions, for official co-productions, but I'm guessing that's kind of out of the scope of what we're actually doing here. The second thing you need to know about is that you need to make your film with a limited company. So again, that might exclude, a lot of filmmakers doing stuff individually and doing very independent stuff. But if you're looking at doing things in a slightly higher budget where this kind of tax credit claim can become valuable for you, then you should think about doing it within the framework of a limited company. So those are two things that I think are worthwhile. I'd also add that if you are actually, making more than one film, you can actually put together through the same limited company. It doesn't have to be a company per film. You can actually put several films through the same limited company. So you only have one set of overheads for accountancy there, but you can actually make multiple claims if you've done from one project.
And I actually, one thing that I encourage filmmakers from a marketing point of view is to always kind of create a production company and brand yourself and brand the company. Correct. Rather than each individual film, because I see so many filmmakers create new Facebook pages and new Instagram accounts for every single film that they make, rather than have their production company Facebook page as well and social media accounts that they build up over time. And with every single film that they make, they grow their following, they grow their fan base, rather than starting from scratch. So that's
absolutely correct. And it's not difficult to set up a limited company. You have to do a bit of paperwork if you're actually working with it, but I think the cost is £12. And in fact, there's an offer if you go with Tide Bank, the app bank. You open an account with them, they'll actually pay that for you. So it's setting up a limited company within this country is probably the easiest and most straightforward thing in Europe.
Okay.
That said, it's not a complete free ride. If you're actually trading, if you're making a film through it, you'll have to do some accounts. You will have to file company returns, and you have some responsibility to trade in a responsible fashion as a director. But that said, it's not particularly onerous. It's not like having a company in Germany or something like that, right?
Right. Okay. That's really interesting. And let's maybe move on to the next topic. So this one, it's a great kind of way to suddenly gain 20% of your budget, or pay 20% less, that a lot of people don't know about, which is super useful. A lot of filmmakers, and this is perhaps something that you can also give some insight on, ask us nearly at every single one of our Cine Circle events, ask us about IP and ask us about, I want to pitch my film, but I'm afraid someone's going to steal my idea. Or I have a film and I'm afraid, again, someone's going to steal it. And we've spoken to producers and to lawyers, and everyone says something slightly different. And I was wondering, what is your thought on someone who's worried about this kind of intellectual property?
There's not a lot you can do about it. Okay, so your options are, if you've got an idea, a piece of IP, ideas generally can't be copyrighted. So you've got the prospect of not telling anybody about it, in which case you're very, very unlikely to get it made, or you have to kind of take that plunge and risk that somebody is going to pinch your idea. Now, ideas themselves, can I use a slightly rude word, Zibby?
Go for it.
There's a saying, ideas are like arseholes because everybody's got one. And it's very, very little to do with the integrity of the idea or the concept, and it's going to be entirely about the execution. Now, once you get to script stage, that starts to become protectable. There are a number of websites, in America you can do it with the Library of Congress, where you can register your script, and it's all about the execution. That is more identifiable and more. You automatically, in this country, you automatically have a copyright in it. So if somebody pinches your idea, unless it's a completely unique idea, of which there are very, very few, there's not a lot you can do about that. On the other hand, if they're copying something that's very close to your execution, and the characters are the same, or the structure's the same, the scenes are the same, then you might start to have a case. But again, the challenge is, are you going to go toe to toe with Warner Brothers legal department, so to say? So the unfortunate thing, it is quite the indie filmmaker is a little powerless in this situation. The solution is to just go out there and be yourself and work your execution and get it as polished and as fine, so people are interested in what you're going to do rather than just what they can do with the concept.
Yeah, and I think this is one advice, although, some people said there's more you can do. Some people said there's, really you can't do anything, don't even bother. Definitely the one common kind of idea that we've always heard is most people will not want to steal your idea. And that's,
exactly
and that's not because your idea sucks, but because everyone makes films because they want to bring their own film to life. They want to bring their passion project to life. So there is very few people on the indie film level that will go, this is an incredible idea, I'm going to steal this. Because even if it's a great idea, people want to do something that's theirs, and this is why they're going to put their entire life work into it. Bigger companies are probably not going to steal your idea, because they actually protect themselves in so many different ways to not do that. So if you send your script to any kind of production company, they will delete the email immediately, and because they're too afraid that someone's going to say that you then stole their idea if they make a completely different film that's just remotely similar. So
exactly right. That's why unsolicited ideas and unsolicited scripts are generally not accepted by serious production companies. It always has to come through an agent who kind of knows what the game, because if they there are only so many ideas, and if they've got something coming up and on the slate that's similar, they don't even want the hassle of that accusation, so it's going straight in the bin. And I would also add, don't ask people to sign NDAs, because that non-disclosure agreement, you get a lot of this in business, and you are asked to sign a piece of paper that says you won't discuss this idea, or you won't do things with this idea. That immediately is a great big red flag to anybody of any seriousness. It's what not terribly well informed people do, and they'll run a mile. So don't worry about NDAs. They're by and large ineffective, and they put people off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I get this sometimes when people pitch ideas to me, and they'll send me an email with an NDA. And to be perfectly honest, like I don't want to see that idea anywhere near enough to be able to stand an NDA. And like you said, they're also ineffective, because at that stage, it's Okay, well, that's super interesting, and I hope that cleared it up for a lot of people who keep asking about it. I also, kind of one big thing that filmmakers tend to be quite bad at is marketing, right? And they know when to start marketing, what to do. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? When it comes to short filmmaking, what is marketing? What is the point of it, and how do you do it?
I mean, a lot of people that we encounter, particularly through Greenlit, and we try and help people with their campaigns, and we help them with promotion. A lot of people get muddled up about exactly what marketing is, and they think it's something like selling or advertising, and the kind of there's a bit of skepticism around it, right? Nobody wants to be that guy with the red braces, constantly shouting about how great his project is. But in fact, marketing is much more than that. If you're a creative person and you've got a concept, or you've got something that you're working on as a film, or it might even be a finished film, that's going to be something very, very special to you. That's going to be something that you put a lot of heart in. You're creative, and you've got something to say to the world about it. And marketing is the process by which you tell the world about it. And there are certain ways to go about your marketing, and there are certain techniques and channels and things like social media, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. But the reality is, you're taking what's important to you and you're telling the world about it. That's what marketing is.
Okay, interesting. So how do you go about it? So what is, you're making a film. At which point during this process do you start your marketing? And when we say start your marketing, start what exactly? What are some of the most effective kind of marketing strategies, and when do you start them?
Sure. I mean, so we know a lot about this from the crowdfunding perspective. So our take is that you should start to think about your marketing well before even the cameras roll. You've got to, what you want to do is make people aware, whether that's in the industry or whether that's the broader public or the broader film enthusiast community. You've got to make them aware of what it is you're doing. So the earlier you start to talk to people about it, the better. And with regards to a film, film is clearly a very, very visual medium. So, long screens of text, long descriptions, posting those, putting those on your social, they tend not to be very good at representing your brand, what it is you're marketing. So start to collect your visual materials. If you've got logo design, poster design, typeface, images, those are the things that you want to start to collect very early on and start to share. And I'll say this again one more time. It's been said a million times at pretty much everything I've ever said. Get some decent behind the scenes stills as well at the same time. So when you move into production, think about that visual component. You can't just take stills from your shoot. Festivals, promotional material, anything you're doing to get that film in front of people, decent quality BTS and action shots, artist shots, hero shots, they're worth their weight in gold. So that's the first thing you want to start to do.
Definitely agree. And let's so social media is something that a lot of filmmakers say, okay, I already do this, right? It's not a question whether they do it well or not, but most filmmakers do kind of organic social media. What are some other forms of marketing that you can do? So you've created a film. Obviously one of the first things, and to answer this question, you would need to create what your objective of the film actually is, right? So
correct.
Say
very much so.
Film, and you want to create you want to have a 1-year festival run, and then you just want as many people to see it as possible, right? Aside from social media, what else would you recommend doing? I mean, would you recommend PR outreach? Would you recommend any paid marketing? What are some of the other kind of marketing strategies you can have to create as much buzz around your short film as possible in order to get as many people to see it?
That's a great question, CB. And what I would do, and what we've seen to be effective with a great many of the films we've been working on. So a paid PR campaign, that is not really likely to yield you much in the way of results. That has been disappointing for a number of things, because what you're doing is perhaps not necessarily all that newsworthy. And if you and even if you do start to get some decent press from it, whether you get some radio or you get in the paper, it's kind of here today and gone tomorrow. It doesn't have a great deal of permanence, and it also doesn't mean that the people you're communicating with have a great depth of connection with it. The most effective marketing tool, and again, this is something we've learned from doing a lot of crowdfunding, is probably email and direct approach. So this is a very, very good time to start. If you're about to start production on a film, this is a very good time to start to catch up with people in the industry and say, well, look, hey, we're going into this, and here are some shots, and I've sent you an email because I think you might be interested. And it's an incredibly good place to start reaching out to people who might want to engage with you professionally, whether that's producers within the industry, whether that's people who program film festivals. Reach out to them, find their email addresses, send them an email, and just say, this is what we're doing. I'm not being pushy. Don't send blanket spam out, but take a little time to craft something to each individual that you're sending it to. We're making this film. I really enjoyed, coming to your festival last year. I thought it was a great selection, and what we're doing is we think it might be a nice fit. So I'm going to put you on the list and send you some details. And the worst thing that's going to happen, people are going to delete that. The best thing that's going to happen is it will catch somebody's eye and they'll go, oh, this person's taking the trouble and I'm interested in a bit of connection, and you engage people. So if you do that over the course of a production and into post, email is very, very effective at getting people engaged and emotionally connected with the film that you're making. And again, I'd say email, also directly connecting with people on social media. That's another form. But personalize it, make it direct, then it's much, much more effective, because you engage people than it is just doing a dry kind of post or a story to everybody.
Okay. Interesting. And for everyone watching, we are going to be finishing this talk in the next few minutes. So if you have any questions for Peter, if you have any sort of business related questions, feel free to simply post them in the chat. Anything, whether it's to do with marketing, whether it's to do with distribution, whether it's to do with funding, simply pop it in the chat and we'll have a crack at answering it. Now, Peter, I wanted to ask you, kind of in summary, are there any other, business things? Is there anything else, either in marketing, or are there any other business aspects which you see filmmakers miss a lot, and which you see filmmakers, this is something that they really don't focus on, and it might be a sort of quick and easy, or relatively quick and easy win for them if there's some, this part of knowledge that they will, that they can acquire?
I mean, there's a secondary part to IP, to intellectual property, and it's kind of the hidden plumbing of the film industry. And if you don't get it right, and if it cracks and leaks, it can have disastrous consequences. So this is the other thing that you would need to be thorough about, is what's known as your chain of title, which means that every creative component that goes into your film, you have a contract to back that up to say that's okay. So as a director, as a producer, everybody has to have very, very simple contracts, at least very, very simple contracts. And you can find the templates online quite readily. But you have to get releases from your actors. So you have to have the authorization from your actors, and it has to be signed, and it has to be on a bit of paper to use their work in a creative context. And it's the same for everybody who has a creative input into the project, from the loftiest of producers to the lowliest of supporting artists. Be meticulous and thorough about getting those releases. I do know somebody, without naming names or giving identifiable information, but had a very well-known actor come in for a few days to do a short film. It was a great coup to get them in. They forgot to get him to sign his release beforehand. A week later, he said, do you know what? I didn't really like my work, so I don't want anybody to see that, so I'm not going to sign a release. So the entire thing, they can do nothing with it now. It can't go on YouTube. It can't be released. It can't go to festivals. So that's a thing people often get rid of, and you often miss, and you can get away with it. But please find your releases and make sure you've got them all in a big folder. That's a big one.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to get those before the shoot, because if you have completed an entire 20 or 30K shoot and you don't have that from one actor, they have a lot of power because they own it.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. It happens. So, before anybody sets foot on set, make sure those releases are all in order, and with your key cast and with people that may have leverage like that as early as possible. Get that contracted, get that on paper.
And I've got one final question for you. Festival runs and festivals for films. And maybe the answer is different for short films and feature films, maybe not. Are they useful, in your opinion? Keep in mind that this is a film festival you're at right now. Now, be perfectly honest. Do you think that they're useful for short films, and do you think they're actually useful for feature films?
Yes. In a nutshell. I mean, not all film festivals are great. There are some kind of ones out there that are not so fantastic, but you can go on Film Freeway and you can look at the reviews. Basically, it's about getting your network on. And again, a lot of filmmakers kind of a bit skeptical about the power of networking, but really, what could be better than taking your film to a screening and hanging out with other filmmakers and exchanging ideas and talking and making those connections. I mean, in that regard, for finding collaborators and for inspiration, film festivals are absolutely brilliant. That's whether you have a short or a feature. You need to maximize the value of those festivals, though. So, don't just blithely turn up and expect everything to be laid on a plate for you. Most festivals, will have a list of delegates before you go. So is there anybody, accredited that you'd like to meet, that you want to hang out with? They very often, send sheets of people who've opted in with their email addresses or their phone numbers or whatever. So if you can get hold of that beforehand, just tend to say, back to emails again, just say, hi, I'm the director of this film we're screening, but, I'd like to hang out. If you're going to be there, I'll buy you a beer. And that kind of little preparation, people will remember you, people will get to know you, and the value of the festival, and they'll see and support your short. So there is a lot of value in that. In a way, that kind of interaction and that kind of network building is much more valuable than simply being able to stick another little laurel leaf on your poster, because that's, unless it's Cannes or Berlin, that's less exciting than it might be. But networks blossom and grow through those kind of meetings, and the film industry just thrives on its networks.
Definitely. And we've got a question over here from Omar, which is marketing. Do you have any thoughts on any marketing service platforms that can help market a short film? Do you know any services, any platforms that can help in short film marketing? And I can maybe start off in terms of if you are interested in doing some PR for your film. This is something that I've heard nearly every single producer that uses a film PR company, nearly every single one of them goes with October Coast, which is an Australian-based, I believe, PR company. That is,
I don't know them. I don't know them at all. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's one that I've heard every single producer that I've spoken to who uses a film PR agency, they go with October Coast. But do you have any other thoughts on any other kind of marketing services that can help market short films?
I have to admit I don't but I believe that particularly for short films, the biggest selling point is authenticity and sincerity. And when you start getting an agency or a platform or something like that in the way of your own communications about the film, I actually think that can tend to be a distraction. I mean, there are lots of short film networks. I mean, there's Genera, there's Center Frame, and now, of course, I was going to say to Zibi, very impressed with the new CineCircle community site. So my advice would be, rather than expecting somebody else to do it, just put a little bit of effort in, drop into the communities. Reddit has some great filmmaking things. Just drop in, say what you're doing yourself. It works an awful lot better than relying on a platform to be your advocate, because they're not you. So then they're not necessarily going to be as excited about the work as you are. Yeah.
Okay. And what about distribution companies for short films? So that we know there are plenty of distribution companies for feature films. And in terms of short films, do you know any short film distributors? This would be a last question and a very quick one for you to answer.
There are some short film distributors out there. Whether they make commercial licenses, I mean, the thing with short film is it has almost no commercial value. I mean, there are some genre platforms that I know of. So, I mean, I think Shudder buys short material, and there are some other genre platforms that will buy short form material. There are platforms that will, they'll license it from you, but the payments that you're going to receive are going to be quite small, and the reach is not going to be as great as what one might hope. So sorry, that's a rather crummy answer. That no, I don't know any particularly great distribution networks for short films. Although I would say one business model I quite like is Pause TV. So pause without an E on the end, PAUS.TV. And they have a tip-based system. They're quite big on NFTs, which not so much, but they have a tip-based system. So somebody goes there, likes your film, they can, give you a quid or a fiver or something like that. And I suspect that's probably the best way to generate some revenues rather than trying to go through a distributor.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, Peter. We do have another question from Emily, but I actually think that question might be better answered in the next talk because it's more on how to create emotional moments during short films, or what's the best way of doing that. So we're gonna answer that in a bit. But yeah, I would just want to thank you, Peter. Thank you for coming on. There's some really, really useful insight, and I'm sure everyone got a lot of value out of that. So thank you for coming.
I really hope so. So thanks for inviting us, ZB. Always a pleasure to be around at your events. It's great.
Great. Take care. Okay, and now Magdalena, I will add you back on, and we will start our next talk. So, hello, Fieba, how are you? You're on mute.
Hello, hi, ZB, hi, Magdalena. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay. Fantastic.
Okay. Sorry for the background noise, but thank you for having me.
It's totally fine. So yeah, it's so great to have you back. Can you give us a quick introduction on who you are and a bit about your work, maybe?
Okay, yeah, shortly. I'm Fieba Di Martino, and I'm a film critic and a cinema journalist, and I work at Film TV, which is a magazine, a weekly magazine, Italian weekly magazine about cinema, TV, and music. So this is my job. This is what I do.
Amazing. And last time we had you on, you had some very interesting insights into the film industry. And so I just want to start exactly where ZB and Peter just ended their conversation. They talked about short films and how can you even distribute them. And so my first question to you is, do you think it makes sense for filmmakers nowadays to still make short films? What would you say are the advantages or disadvantages of creating short form content? You're muted.
Sorry, I keep on switching on off like a tick. So I think that in the first place, making short movies is a way to test various skills. So you can test the potential of your story. I think that often for filmmakers, probably they can test the length in which you can develop your idea. So I think that this is a functional way to challenge and also to discover the range that your script can or should reach. So maybe you can find out that your story needs a wider range, that it can transform itself into something bigger. Maybe that you should have a character whose arc was emotional journey need a feature film where you can deepen the character study, or maybe you find out that your story belongs to a short format because the events take an exhaustive shape and don't need to be dragged into an hour or more than an hour. So I think that it really depends on what the story and the character need to express itself, and so in the best way. So I think that it also depends on how the author feels about them and about their life duration in a way.
That's great. I think exploration and experimenting is so important, especially in early stages as a filmmaker, but also early stages of a project. Here's a quick question, an add-on question for that. because obviously you're monitoring the film festival circuit and film releases in general for years, and you have a very deep knowledge on films. Is it still the case that people graduate from short film to feature film? Do you still see this progression a lot, or do you find a lot of new filmmakers are jumping straight into feature films or TV even?
No, I think that the short movie format is still the first step that many filmmakers take. For example, I'm thinking about Julia Ducournau, the Palme d'Or winner for Titan. She did a great movie that had in itself many themes that then we saw on her movie. Or maybe Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary and Midsommar. He made, I think, 4 or 5 short movies that were really, really a great exposition of his poetic vision and themes. So I think that most of the filmmakers that then graduate into the long form do many short movies, like to practice their themes, their art, their vision. Yeah,
that's interesting. And are there any milestones that are typical for these short films? Like, do they actually really succeed in the bigger range festivals, or do you sometimes see that it's actually just one big festival you need to get, or lots of little festivals and then some momentum gets created?
Well, I think that I often see short movies by young directors that then grow up and grow old into bigger movies. So movies that are a longer length, and but also directors that return to the short movie form. Like for example, Luca Guadagnino or Alice Rohrwacher, two of the most important Italian filmmakers working in today's industry. And they often return to this form because they probably feel that is the best way to express themselves, and they are accepted at the festival because short movies by authors that are affirmed, they are seen like it's simply another step, not a step back from the long metrage.
That is very interesting, and I think that should be very encouraging for anyone listening who is loving to make short films like I am. Like I think I enjoy the short format more than I would long format films. So let's talk a bit more about the actual making of short films. From your experience in sorry, there's a lot of noise in my background now. From your experience in watching a lot of short films, are there any typical mistakes that filmmakers make? So, for example, on the structural side, narrative, or in regards to themes that you've seen over and over again that people should avoid?
First of all, I think that in making a short film, there is the urge to tell a lot, to put in the story as much as possible in terms of themes, meanings, twists, also metaphors. So I often find myself thinking that, yes, less is more. So this is, I think, a healthy way to approach the creation of a short story. I think that it's important to have a clear view of what you have to tell, of what you want to tell, and tell it without things at the in the story that in the end the story doesn't need. And so I think this, and secondly, I think that maybe another risk is to put too much of ourselves in front of the camera, because you have to show your artistic identity, your style of filmmaking. The short movie was always often is a card, like a business card, to present oneself. But again, I believe that sometimes the story demands us to take a step back and to give us things that we want to say or to show for the sake of its truth. So it's clarity, and in the clarity, unless you are making a experimental cinema, is at the core of the making. So I happen to see maybe short movies that have a great idea, but don't develop it enough, or on the other end, that maybe just suggest what they have to say. Maybe you look at the story that is just the embryo of the story, a fragment of something that it's in the head of the director, and in his head, in his or her head, is bigger, is wider, and maybe he or she wasn't able to deliver it in a short film. So maybe you love a story, you love an idea that you have, but you simply it simply doesn't fit the format, maybe.
Mhm.
So I think that it's important to consider what does work as a short film and what doesn't. So I find myself maybe sometimes frustrated because I want to see more, or I feel that I've just seen a glimpse of an idea that was still in a larger stage, maybe. So the principal tropes, I think, are maybe self-discovery, mysteries, with a captive theater. So, but I think that the most important thing is really to don't be cryptic if you you are don't if you aren't making a experimental movie or something that is really radical, but you have to be sure, I think, that the viewer can understand what you are saying.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think
I think that's really interesting, especially, you know, I feel we always want to pack so many things into one film, and you know, sometimes you have to kill your darlings and just get rid of things that you personally really like footage you shot or a scene that you really liked, but that doesn't serve the overall story. So I think it's really important to be very critical of that. So let's say some of our filmmakers out here are working on a new project, developing a new idea. Do you have any advice for them? How should they approach making a short film? And attached to that is also the question that I personally just was confronted with. I've talked with a filmmaker recently who is very much making films for his show reel. So rather than saying, here's a story that I love and I want to make this, it's more like, here's something that's missing in my show reel. I'm going to make a film to fill that gap. So how should people approach choosing a subject and choosing a story?
Yeah, I think that you have to be completely sure that the box, the format of the short movie is the proper fitting for the story that you want to tell. I think that if you can, you have to make a virtue of necessity, because if I think your idea is strong and you believe in it, it can be effective, even if you have little time, maybe a few props, a few money to tell it. But I think that it can work if you believe in it and if you have really a clear vision of what it means to deliver it into the world. And I would add that is important to deliver the story, like I said, and the style in a clear way. But this doesn't mean that you have to be basic. Or always too simple, too direct. I think the ideal result, in my opinion, is a short film that leaves you satisfied and happy and excited and fulfilled, but also that leaves you wanting for more from the filmmaker in the first place, but maybe also from the characters. So if you fall in love with a story within 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, I think that that's a win. Absolutely.
Great. We've had an audience question about the best way to create emotional moments in film. So maybe we can tie this into my next question that I prepared for you, which is some films that you've seen recently that really stood out to you. And maybe we can talk about one or two films that you've recently seen, and then see if we can tie this in with how do you actually create an emotional moment without making it feel unnatural or over the top.
Well, I can maybe mention one of the movie that is in competition at the festival, and that is Nostalgia by Anastasia, like maybe 8 minutes, and it works as a memory, like fragments of colors, emotions, pieces of life, and it doesn't want to be more than this. It wants to deliver a powerful flow of visual consciousness that is brief, but precisely for this reason is very effective, very real, very on point with the characters. And since sometimes memories hit you like this, they exist for short instants. So I think that if you have an idea that is really, really something that at its core is an emotion, and emotions are really probably they are fleeing, and we can lost them really in a matter of seconds. A short movie is the best way and the best home to put an emotion, I think, a memory or a feeling. And for the other question from the audience, I'm thinking about a short French movie that was called Pépé le Morse, Grandpa Walrus, a movie by Luc Rhys Andrea that showed an animated movie that showed a disrupted family on a beach during the process of saying goodbye to the recently deceased grandfather, with every member of the family reacting differently to the loss. And the animation is really simple, but breathtaking, really, really expressive. And the writing was very realistic, and the ending was soul crushing. I recommend the watch. Is on YouTube, the short movie, and the director managed to make you bond with the characters in the span of 15 minutes, and he was able to do that because he built a great screenplay. He could really make strong a strong bond between the characters with just maybe one image, one gesture, one glaze between the characters. I really think that sometimes all you need is the right move, the right gesture, the right phrase, the right question, or the right answer said by a character, and you really can reach the depth of the character and the heart of the viewer.
I think that's a really great example. I will definitely watch that. And what I'm reading into what you said also is it's important to explore emotions from the inside out rather than trying to recreate something external, but really being observant of yourself and of other people and try to root it in something that feels real. Great. Last question for you, because I know you're already working again in 10 minutes. You'll have to watch a movie for your work and review it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So you don't get a break. So my last question for you is, have you recently seen any trends, any topics at festivals that have been prominent, any themes in movies nowadays that you find are recurring and coming back again and again?
Yes, I would like to say that it's interesting to me that many in circle deal with the themes of mental health, the difficulties of motherhood, the struggle for a better life, and female friendship. And that makes me think that we are really trying to be more and more open to tackle complex and difficult matter, offer some kind of solution through cinematic art, and that's because I think society, there are subjects here recently, and that deserves to be told, to be explored, to be made public. So I think, for example, the class satire is a hot topic nowadays, since probably since the Parasite exploit in particular. So and we can see it with the most recent Palme d'Or winner, Triangle of Sadness by Ruben Östlund, but also in regarding which people are becoming more conscious and more eager to see it. And then there's the female gaze, the female experience that after the Me Too and movies like Promising Young Woman, Bombshell, Invisible Man, many others are becoming much relevant, more relevant than ever in today's narratives. So, for example, She Said and Woman Talking and are two features that I'm personally strongly looking forward to. And at the Locarno Film Festival, there were many movies tackling with female traumas and the consequences of the patriarchal way of thinking and the struggle against the oppression. And I think that the other themes that are surging always from a progressive dimension are movies with, for example, non-binary characters or transgender actors like Monica by Andrea Pallauro, that was in competition in Venice. And I think that if on one hand movie theaters are struggling, and so they are in the need of big expensive movies like amusement park movies like Marvel, Disney blockbuster. On the other hand, movies that really take into consideration more subtle themes, more diverse audience, more inclusive stories are really increasing. So I'm curious to watch the stories that are coming to us, and we still and stories that we still know and
Yeah, your connection is breaking off a little bit now.
rich are slowly to us and slowly getting into the light.
Yeah, the last bit we missed, but I think we got the overall picture because the connection was a little bit weak. But it's really exciting to see so much more female stories being told, and especially as we're also having the Cinecircle Women in Film Festival that you also were one of the judges of. Yeah, your image is frozen now, so I'm not sure if you can still hear me. But thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you can hear me. That's great. So thank you so much for coming here and having this very interesting conversation. Your observations are really interesting, and I hope this was insightful for all of you.
Thank you.
And now we'll let you go and watch your film work calls, and we'll continue with the award ceremony.
Thank you.
Okay, great. That was super insightful and super interesting. So yes, like Magdalena said, the next step is to move forward with the final awards ceremony. And this is going to be quite interesting because this is the International Short Film Week, which is actually the award ceremony for 3 different festivals and a screenplay competition. So we do have a lot of categories to get through, which is going to be but yeah, all of these were really, really amazing films. Now, before we start off with this, it would be fantastic if you guys could maybe let us know in the comments if you have seen the films, what are your favorites? If you have made any of the films that were nominated, let us know in the chat, and we will get started. Yeah.
Yes, and while you're doing that, quick shout out to one of our judges, Jasmine Embrechts, who wanted to be here today as well, but couldn't because of time zone problems. And she's recently released a book for actors called The Active Actor, a call to action for the actor between jobs, that's now on Amazon. So shout out to you, Jasmine, and thank you for being part of the judging process. I think it was a really difficult selection. There are so many good contenders this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. There were a lot of really great films. We got some of the, season with the most submissions yet, and and sort of so many films that we wanted to nominate, and let alone to find one winner is extremely difficult. But we'll move on with the awards ceremony, and we are going to start off with the main CineCircle annual festival. And the first category is going to be the best short film, and the winner of the CineCircle Film Festival Best Short Film Award is As Apple Pie. So congratulations. This was a really, really incredible film. And Magdalena, I'll let you do the next one.
Right. So the award for Best Director goes to For Your Own Good by Sylvia Chen. Yeah, that was a very emotional one. If you've seen that, if you've not seen that, you can still watch it. I really recommend it. Yeah, very intense and emotional.
Definitely. And the best cinematography goes to also For Your Own Good. It really was an incredible film in all different aspects, including the cinematography.
And then the Best Actor Award goes to When the Clapping Stops, Miles Mitchell.
And Best Actress goes to For Your Own Good, Arwen Monzos Sanders. Both really, really incredible performances. And then the final category,
Best Original Score. And that's my personal favorite, I think. Good Night, Little Tomato. So if you've seen that, you probably know why I'm laughing. It's a really interesting experimental film with absolutely amazing score and sound design. So definitely check that out if you can.
Yeah. And we do have a question from Omar. Where can we watch the winning films? So you can watch them if you go to just hover over events, and you will be able to go to the Short Film Festival Week. And there you will be able to view the films, which will be available until the end of this week. Okay. And now we're going to move on to the Women's CineCircle Festival, where we really, most of the films were directed or produced by female directors and producers, and it's something that we've continued to do now for about 4 years. I think this is the 4th season, and yeah, it's we get a very kind of unique films and really great kind of selection. So we really love this festival, and we'll get right into the nominees and the awards. So starting off with the best short film, and the winner of the Women's Film Festival goes to Baggage. And this is one of my personal favorites. If you haven't seen it, definitely go on to check it out on the website. It will still be live for the next 2 days. And the next category,
Best Director goes to Blinkers by Sofia Capasso.
Another really, really great film.
Yeah, I think there were so many great films in this festival specifically. And yeah, that makes me very happy, because that's been a few years now that you've been running this one.
Yeah. And the best cinematography goes to Mami Wata. Or Wata. It's another really, really quite emotional film. So definitely recommend checking that out.
And experimental, which is also great.
Yeah. Okay, and then we'll move on to the CineCrowd Film Festival. Now, at CineCircle, we are really always quite interested in crowdfunding. It's something that we promote quite a lot. We love filmmakers taking taking everything into their own hands and really, trying to greenlight themselves rather than waiting for a studio to do it for them. So we love crowdfunding for that reason. And that's why we created the CineCrowd Film Festival, which aim is to help and promote and celebrate filmmakers who are looking to crowdfund their films, which is why we do so many crowdfunding webinars and courses and sessions. So let's get straight into the winners of this year's CineCrowd Film Festival. The best short film goes to Wasp, Sharks, and Vending Machines. I love the title. I love the film. The acting is great. The storyline is very interesting. So yeah, I love this film. And the next category?
Best director goes to Wasp, Sharks, and Vending Machines. I think this, by Quentin Lin, I think this should also win best title of all submissions.
Indeed. Yeah. And finally, best cinematography goes to Backseat Driver. It's also a really, really nice film that I would recommend watching. And finally, we've got the Cine Screenplay Competition, which is another competition for screenplays under 30 pages long. And we got some, really, really great submissions this year. Magdalena, I don't know if you want to say something about, that and any of the themes that you've noticed this year in comparison to last year, and in general, what you thought of all the submissions.
Well, I think that's always such a difficult one, because you read so many scripts and they're all so different. I do find that a lot of people choose a subject that is close to their lived experience. So that's still something that's quite prominent. There wasn't anything COVID or pandemic related. So I think we're really away from that sort of thematic. The stories that I found the most convincing here were stories about empathy. So that has been a big theme, where it's about understanding a character or people relating to each other. So that was definitely the biggest theme, and the most convincing stories were around those sorts of ideas.
That's really interesting. Okay, so let's move on. And here we will go from fourth place to the first place, who is the winner. And each one gets a different level of reward. Okay, so starting off with fourth place. And fourth place goes to Men of the Hour, written by Bob Eckhart. This was a really great script. And in third place?
In third place, we have Make-A-Wish by Robin Peet. Yeah, that was a very, very sweet one. We obviously cannot tell you what it's really about, and you can't read them, unfortunately. But yeah, if the writer is here, all those selected ones are really, really awesome, and this one is very sweet.
And in second place, we have Empty Nest by Daniel Powell. And for the winner,
Call Me Nevada by Alexander Julian.
So congratulations, Alexander, for winning this year's Cine Screenplay Competition, and congratulations to all the filmmakers who got nominated, as well as all the filmmakers, of course, who won this year's, whether it's the screenplay competition or any of the 3 festivals. Big congratulations. For some of you who won certain parts of this festival, you will be getting an email from me tomorrow because you won certain rewards by winning the festival. So I will be emailing all of you tomorrow to confirm what that is and all of the details. But yeah, I just want to say once again, big congratulations to all the filmmakers. Yeah, Magdalena, I don't know if you have any closing words or anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, it's always emotional, this award ceremony and the time leading up, because you see so much talent, you see so many important and interesting stories. And for me, this year, especially Women in Film and the screenwriting competition had so many great stories. It was really hard to not nominate certain scripts and films, but it's a very good sign. So people out there, keep creating. It's being heard and seen and read.
Yeah, and I definitely see every single year the quality of the films does increase. So does the sort of competition, but with that, I see that filmmakers are tackling topics that are really important. It's really interesting how Fiaba was talking about mental health, which I think is a really, really interesting topic. And I think filmmakers are keep tackling that in new ways. They're also tackling a lot of difficult subjects, which I think really we need to shed more light on. So that's great to see. One theme that I've also noticed is, although this is not reflected maybe in most of the nominated films, actually there were a lot of films submitted which had a much happier theme and than there were in the last 2 years, which are all very COVID related. So there were quite a lot of comedies that were submitted, which perhaps says something about where we are now, where we can finally laugh again, rather than in the last year and the previous year, which was quite dark times. So I'm glad that we are coming to the end of that, or that we have come out of that. And it's really interesting that you mentioned there were no scripts about COVID, and I'm seeing a similar trend with films. So hopefully that part of our lives is behind us, and we can move on to something better. So thank you all, and I hope I hope that you all enjoyed this festival. Like I mentioned, feel free to do a couple of things. Feel free to click on the link above, just hover over the events in the menu bar, and you can go and continue to watch some of the short films. If you are interested in having more in-depth sort of courses on producing, you do have a really, really incredible course with a 68% discount just below this video, which is a course that gives you 14.5 hours of video tutorials from different producers on all the things covering funding as well as distribution. So feel free to have a look at that if you haven't yet. And also tomorrow we will be running a crowdfunding webinar, a free crowdfunding webinar on this website as well. So feel free to attend that. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who submitted their films. Thank you to everyone who attended this festival. It's been a real pleasure hosting it today and throughout the last week. And I hope that you all enjoyed it. Okay. Have a good evening or a good morning, depending on where you are. And hopefully we'll see you again soon at the next Semicircle events. So take care.
Bye, everyone.